Hello all, this is a new one today, a new personality here, I guess as you would say. Norman Spencer coming at you representing 012 Boku.
And I am Ardith Bay, bastard son of Michael Bay. Fear me, bitches.
I guess we would, because it's rather unsettling that. We are coming at you today with another review, and one that you may find interesting. Probably maybe people have seen this show, which is why I'm reporting on it. I had a lot to do for that time in the years of, what was it, 94 through 96, I believe. But we are coming at you today with probably one of the biggest crimes and also one of the biggest bungles of crime ever in our history of our justice system, and in my opinion, the downfall of our justice system at the beginning. And that is The People versus OJ Simpson, an American crime story. I don't know if this was the first American crime story show or if they did a couple, but I know there's like a few more out there since OJ Simpson, and recently they are doing an American crime story of I think it's The State versus well, I don't know. It's the one with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton. Impeachment. There we go. That's the name. Impeachment, an American crime story. So that's the recent one. But this one was all the way done back in 2016, where it really gave us an in-depth look on the O.J. Simpson trial.
Well, there was the one that, there was the crime they didn't report. I didn't get to be the one to blow up L.A. He did it. Seriously. I mean, did you people ever see what happened to Los Angeles after the trial? Yeah, me, the bastard son of Michael Bay, I didn't get to blow up LA because OJ beat me to it.
Well, remember, OJ was bad, but not as bad as, I remember they were saying it because it was shown in the beginning and they were talking about it throughout the show, was depending on the verdict, it was also what happened to the Rodney King murders in 92, where that really set Los Angeles ablaze, and a major distrust of the LAPD and, well, I will say the people of Los Angeles, or to be fair, black people of Los Angeles, because it really set things ablaze, and the Rodney King murders just lit everything up, and personally, everyone from the mayor to one of OJ's lawyers, Robert Shapiro, and quite a few other people were very worried about it.
But I mean,
very worried.
What do you expect? The city is literally called the City of Lost Angels. Los Angeles. I mean, well, come on.
Well, it is in the name. It is in the name. And as you can imagine with this show, when I saw it, I did not expect it to go super in depth. I really should have realized with biopics, yes, you do take liberties, but most of the time they do go pretty in depth. So believe it or not, it starts out with poor Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman's murder, where a neighbor finds it, and you have O.J. Simpson's team joking about it, where he was walking his dog, and two dogs, including the guy walking his dog, found the bodies, and that started the whole thing. The cops got involved looking for O.J., couldn't find him, found that his kids were safe in Nicole Brown's house where they found the bodies, nobody was hurt, and then, it was off to the races from there. They went to O.J.'s house, couldn't find him, called him, he was away on, I forget where he was, but he was away on business, and he basically did not sound shocked that very much at all about what happened to Nicole. Oh, and I probably should disclose something as I try to quickly explain this plot. If anyone, because as my friend Jherick told me here, his family watched this show right when it came out, and I guess it was his grandmother or aunt was trying to use the show to show that O.J. Simpson was not guilty. This biopic really shows how guilty he was, because if you wanted to think O.J. Simpson was not schizophrenic, this is not the show to watch, because this show really points out how unhinged this man was at quite a few times.
Well, and it's funny, in the trial, they never brought up the fact, and I love how they later made a point of this with, like, Chris Benoit, how his job, being a football player, probably gave him massive amounts of head trauma because they didn't use the good helmets back in his day. I mean, they had helmets, to try to lessen the head trauma, but not the best shit back in OJ's time, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yes.
Kind of like the flying headbutt situation all over again.
Yes, and and as many people know, since you brought up wrestling, as a side note, as many people blame Benoit, and believe me, Benoit going nuts and crazy like that, he is to blame. I am not simping for Benoit. It is really bad what happened. I hate he did that to his youngest son and wife. That was terrible. I am not condoning that. But Vince McMahon had a lot of that weird stuff with Chris Benoit happen on his watch. That was his responsibility to his workers. And in my opinion, you can agree with me or not, he dropped the ball on it, and in my opinion, should probably bear some of the responsibility.
Hey McMahon, WWE's got no chance. That's what it's got.
Very nice, very cruel word use there, Jherick. Very nice indeed. But in a way, as we make that reference, it went on where, OJ Simpson comes back, starts freaking out, wants to think about committing suicide while in Robert Kardashian's house. Yes, you heard me. If you've never heard the man, Robert Kardashian, he is the father of Kim Kardashian. Maybe those who watch the Kardashians knew that, but I did not know that, so I was blown away. If you want to know too, when this trial was happening, I was about 6 at the start, and I was 8 once he was convicted, so I had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah, I believe I was about 12 or 13 at the time.
So yeah, you had a bit of a better grasp being older, but me as a kid, it was like that. And also, to just rub salt in the wound, because personally, folks, I believe he was guilty. Even when I got older and we looked at the crime, and if we ever learned about it in class, or if you read about it or saw any of the specials that led up to years after he was released, I always believed he was guilty. So if you're wondering about that, yes, I believe he was guilty, and he got away with a crime that he committed and was not innocent. But either way, just to save hopefully people coming at me with pitchforks, yes.
And if anybody wants to know if I thought he was guilty, well, let me just say, who killed Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown? You guessed it, OJ Simpson.
There you go. You have both our answers on that. But either way, like I said, he comes back, he tries to kill himself at Robert Kardashian's house, can't really do it. He escapes into the white Ford Bronco, which there is a second identical white Ford Bronco that did not have the blood in it, that was owned by his friend AC, Arthur Cowlins, and that's where the whole chase scene, started with the police escort and all that malarkey.
And just to debunk the rumor that he was trying to drive to his mom's house was in the opposite. They passed his mom's house. He was driving in the direction of the Arizona-Mexico border. He had a fake passport and a disguise. So anybody who tells you he was on his way to take a nice little stroll to mommy's house, he was headed to Mexico, bitches.
Yes, which believe it or not, in the part of the show near the beginning, they had Chris Darden look into that, and they dropped that rather quickly with the court saying that there was not enough evidence with Arthur Cowlins trying to get OJ Simpson to Mexico with the disguise and the passports, and that was probably a bit of big evidence dropped. And poor Darden, the guy tried so hard in this case, and he seemed to have opposition at every turn, but not to take away from Marsha Clark, because oh man, was she headhunted too, the poor woman.
But I mean, hey, what do you expect? I mean, when you got two prosecuting attorneys who are literally in a relationship, which you're not supposed to do during a trial, but hey, I mean, it's not like they were the only ones breaking protocol. Judge Ito appearing on late night television shows, talking about the case, cracking jokes, which again, massive violation of protocol. You have a witness who's leveraging his position in the trial to get positions in porn movies. Yeah, that fucking happened.
Which those were some of the liberties they took with the shows, because those things didn't really show up. They sort of hinted at them, but never really explored. I could sort of understand why they made those changes, because maybe it would have seemed a little too weird for folks, but then again, it happens all the time with Hollywood. Maybe there was also some massive backlash if they showed that, so you never know. But of course it was 2016 and it was the time, and again, I'm not going to say this, but I'm also not going to be afraid to say this. It was the time of the beginning of the whole, SJW and weirdness. Maybe, yes, even though the inclusion thing was started, maybe someone would have thought it weird because it was at the OJ Simpson trial if we saw the possible relationship pinnings of Marsha Clark and Chris Darden. But, oh well, I digress.
And you know, I'm gonna make this joke, and I know I'm gonna get a shit for saying this, but hey, the prosecuting team must have been really big Spike Lee fans because man, did they have some jungle fever.
Wow, indeed. Well, and you know, pretty much, you know, people got some things out of it. That's for sure. But either way, once OJ Simpson is arrested, you go through the whole thing of the trial to where, because to make this really short, because this is another show like Chernobyl. So much happens in it. You would need an episode per episode review. You cannot talk about the whole series and get everything out, but to make that long story short, it was the prosecution trying to find whatever evidence they had, coming up with some real bits of solid evidence, and having everyone from Robert Shapiro, and when they called in Johnny Cochran, who really turned it into a race thing, it became about narrative. The word I really hate today, because now I understand why I hate narrative, because when you can use it to win court cases and to also bend the truth as we do today, oh, do I hate it.
And you know, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. This is my personal headcanon conspiracy theory, but I have a feeling Miss Clark and Mr. Darden knew they were not allowed to win this case. I mean, fucking come on, it was OJ. You know, I mean, they had to know somewhere in the back of their mind they were not going to be allowed to win this. Not after, like, the Rodney King.
Well, they had their doubts, and believe me, that they showed that really well throughout the show, where they had their doubts and had their things, and where they had the infighting, because Marsha Clark still put Mark Furnham on the stand, who was an avid racist, as we learn, very racist. And I don't know if this is true to form or if they put it in for seasoning for the show, but after Chris Darden interviews him and he's talking about not using Mark Furnham, you see Mark Furnham in his house, who claimed he liked to collect World War II medals, and one of the medals he has is a Nazi star from a general. Yes, that doesn't do good in a case when you're talking about a person who killed a religious race of people called the Jews.
And you know, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know, like, for certain on this, but I have to believe that a lot of people basically had their careers nuked for this. I mean, like, I haven't heard much about Clark or Darden. I have to imagine Ito's probably being kept on a tight leash.
Well, Ito, they say in the end, Ito retired in 2015. Even though you said he went on TV, he was the only person not to really write a book or talk about the case after it was done. Chris Darden actually starts a law firm and works at a law firm himself. He's not really a lawyer, but he teaches about law and teaches people correct versions of law. And then Marsha Clark, which I should have get this because I've saw some of her books, became a best-selling author based on her cases. Because she's like, well, if I can't win by the justice system, I as well as hell make it entertaining. And you know, hey, if she did, good for her, because why not? She can get her stories out and try to preserve justice that way, I guess.
You know, I'll give her credit for that, you know, because honestly, after the OJ case, I think the only person who really made out like a bandit was Shapiro and Cochran.
Yes, because, well, I think F. Lee Bailey did too, as did Alan Dershowitz, and I forget his name, but the one lawyer criminal analysis guy who was trying to disprove the DNA evidence, I think they all made it out pretty big too.
That's right. I forgot about that. Dershowitz was in the trial.
Well, because there's a part where Alan Dershowitz is going against O.J. Simpson, mocking Robert Shapiro and everything else. That is where Robert Shapiro, greatly played by John Travolta, by the way, calls F. Lee Bailey, shockingly played by Nathan Lane, so Nathan Lane can do drama, folks. He's not just a comedian. And he comes in and basically tells F. Lee Bailey, how do I get Alan Dershowitz to shut up? F. Lee Bailey's like, hire him. And it worked.
And by the way, people, you know who else Alan Dershowitz has worked with? Anyone? The Clintons.
Oh, well, that one I didn't know. Maybe my friend who showed me the show, as I'm talking about it, yes, this was another show I watched with my friend. Maybe he mentioned it, I couldn't remember, so there you go. And maybe that's where I also heard the name from, because I know I heard before I watched the show and they mentioned him. I'm like, Alan Dershowitz, I know I've heard that name before.
Oh, yeah, if you've been following a lot of the more recent bullshit, you know, Russiagate, blah, 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 you're going to hear the name Dershowitz a lot. Get used to it.
Yes, and there's just many things that go on with the trial that proved to be a bust. And like you said, maybe the prosecution knew, maybe they didn't want to fully believe it, but towards the end, when the conviction comes, you know, the prosecution, as you can imagine, is happy. They're all like with themselves and like ecstatic as could be. As is OJ Simpson, and even.
I think you mean acquittal. He was acquitted the first time.
Oh, yes, the acquittal, yes.
Yeah, the conviction was for the second one when he did the robbery in Las Vegas.
My bad, yes, acquittal. He was convicted in Los Angeles, or Las Vegas for the kidnapping and robbery. Yeah, they mentioned that at the end of this, too. So, thank you. I always keep... So, yes, he was acquitted and wasn't convicted. There you go. So, they're all happy. Marsha Clark and Dodden are devastated, and, basically, Marsha Clark didn't want to go out there. Mayor Gil Garcetti at the time says, you have to. We owe it to the families. We have to at least say something. Marsha Clark goes out there, wanting to put on a good face. She does. Dodden goes out there, puts it on for a few minutes, breaks down, and hugs the Goldmans, thinking he failed them, and then, you have, and then the best part I loved about the show is after we see everything that the prosecution goes through and their final thoughts. I like how OJ Simpson goes home, he's thinking everything's hunky-dory, and also, he sees where in his neighborhood, though, there are people who are still upset with him, saying, you did it, you did it, you did it, and there was that too. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when the trial verdict was given, you saw half the country up in arms celebrating, the other half just in disbelief. And the one thing I took note of is that it's really quick and you have to pause it, as I did rewatching this. Oprah Simpson, Oprah Winfrey did not look too happy about his not guilty verdict. I mean, maybe she was, but I couldn't tell. That look on her face where where half of the crowd was celebrating, the other half was disappointed. She didn't look too happy herself. I just took note of that.
I wonder if she still drinks orange juice. Just a thought.
Indeed. Wow, Jherick, indeed.
I know, getting a little dark here, man.
Well, it was a dark show, so there you go. So, I mean, in a way, when it's done, O.J. Simpson's trying to get his life back on track. His son gives him a dog, saying, you'll always have a friend, sort of hint, hint. You're not going to have many friends after this.
Yeah.
And, he has a party where there's all these waiters and neighbors he doesn't know. He doesn't even recognize anyone here. He's wondering where everyone is. You can take a guess why nobody's there. Tries to get a reservation at the restaurant. The restaurant doesn't want him. And he just sort of walks out of his house. I also have to make a mention, too. As he's walking out, they're playing the one pop song, Sad and Free. Isn't that ironic? He's free, but you really don't have anybody. And then he looks up at his statue where you hear just a voiceover in the crowd where you're hearing his thoughts going, where people are celebrating OJ. All you have left is the nostalgia, my friend. You didn't have much left after this.
And by the way, people, if you think Juicy Smuggle Nuts doing that little I'm not suicidal rant was crazy, watch the OJ trial that time he was fighting for custody of his kids, and he decided to sing that song from Cats. I'm not even joking. Of all the musicals, really? Cats?
Oh yes, and believe it or not, to go over it really quickly, they mentioned that at the end where they go over everyone at the trial, where they mention how Marsha Clark resigned from the DA's office, became an author. Chris Dodden resigned, is now a teacher at law school. Gilgas said he was the mayor for so long, and then his son took over. Robert Shapiro basically sort of made out like a bandit and represented other famous people. F. Lee Bailey got disbarred and lost his license. Him and Robert Shapiro fight in this show a lot, and Robert Shapiro was there for his disbarment, go figure. And and as well, you have Johnny Cochran opened many law firms throughout the remainders of his years before dying of a brain tumor in 2005. One thing I didn't mention is how, I'll probably mention it going over my favorite character analysis, is where Robert Kardashian, a best friend of OJ, stopped believing he was innocent during the trial, and told people after it that he started believing of OJ's guilt through that, and he had that thought all the way till he died of cancer in 2004.
Now, Robert Kardashian isn't going to say OJ did it, but if he did, this is how he'd do it.
Pretty much. But again, he would know why. He wouldn't have to say much because he was there on the trial, and like he said, anything against him would be also against his family. So he was in a rock and a hard place, was Robert Kardashian. I felt bad for that goober for sure. And as well, they mention. Oh wait, yes, they also mention the family where they don't show it, but they mention how the Browns were trying to keep custody of Sydney and Justin. OJ Simpson won the case, as they say, and fled Los Angeles after that, going all the way down to Florida. The Browns had a repeal of a case, and, I forget the father's name, but the father Brown was making a repeal in court that OJ did it. They actually won that case. Now, granted, OJ was not going to go to jail, but he owed the family, I think it was $33 million or something like that. They were only paid, I thought OJ paid the $1 million, and that was it. No, it wasn't even $1 million. It was only like $350,000, and that's all the Browns got. If there were people who really got screwed over in this trial, it was the Brown family.
And as I recall, he also...
Oh, no, not the Brown family, the Goldman family, sorry. Well, I mean, the Browns did too, but the Goldmans, I think, got it was.
And as I recall, I believe his name was Fred Goldman. And
Goldman, thank you, Jherick.
And he also wanted OJ's Heisman Trophy because he was going to smash that shit for what he did to his son.
Oh, that I did not know.
I believe he didn't get the Heisman Trophy, which, God help me, I think he should have. If they were going to screw him over financially, at least give him that. But, yeah, like you said, man, there was a lot of, people really went to the mat for OJ on that one. And then the Las Vegas kidnapping happened.
Yes, which they talk about at the end. And they mention how he, tried to do the Las Vegas... Well, he did do the Las Vegas kidnapping as is a burglary, where he tried to steal his memorabilia, I think, from one of the casinos. And that actually got him in trouble and sentenced to prison. He was sentenced for 33 years, and given the show took place in 2016, he was eligible for parole in 2017. I think I asked my mom after that, like a few days later when the show ended, if OJ Simpson got paroled. I think she said he did, so yes, quite.
Another interesting kind of parallel to Juicy Smuggle Nuts is just as Juicy doing what he did ended Empire and basically all the careers of everyone involved in that, the Police Squad movies were super hot when the trial happened. Yeah, where's that fourth Police Squad movie? I guess Frank Drebin's still a little pissed off about Nordberg going crazy in Vegas, huh?
Indeed. But either way, that is basically the story in a nutshell. We went a little long on it, but like I said, there's so much to go over. As for, favorite characters who I enjoyed, there's so many to pick out. Everybody was so good in this show, for just heinous people, good people, you name it. If there's three people who I thought did a great job, and sadly it's sort of all on the heinous side, I'll name them off. Nathan Lane is F. Lee Bailey, fantastic work. Robert Kardashian, played by David Schwimmer. That really threw me for a loop, because I was never a big David Schwimmer fan, never really liked Friends, but oh man, was David Schwimmer's performance on point in this show. And last but not least, you have got to give credit to Cuba Gooding Jr. Yes, people said Cuba Gooding Jr. did not sound like OJ, but man, did he nail the man's character to a T in the performance. Just the schizophrenia, his weirdness, his football memes, the way he would be on people, nice 1 minute, upset the next because the case went wrong. They got everything they did. The way he captured the exact reactions during the put on the glove moment and bunch of fists so it doesn't fit. All those things, just fantastic stuff. So those three actors were good, but of course, nods to Sarah Paulson, Sterling K. Brown, yes, wait, I mentioned you, what? Oh, John Travolta, just lots of other people being involved. Oh yes, Bruce Greenwood, who played Gil Garcetti, just great cast all around. Great cast.
I have to agree with him perfectly on this. Everybody stepped up their A game, and hey, show OJ the money. Show OJ the money.
You know that it makes you wonder if this was supposed to be the opposite of that character that he played in Jerry Maguire, which again, yes, you could say, given what we're talking about with a famous person being arrested and how Hollywood isn't there. You know, I know probably 90% of these actors in this movie are stupid, heinous people themselves, but you know what? As much as I did it, it's like how my friend told me, if we always end up hating the actors they play, and, you know, hate the people behind the performance and always focus on who they are, you'll never like another movie again. You'll never like another show again.
Yep.
It's like, you have to not think about who these people are personally to enjoy it, and that's what I do. Great performers, just like, I'll make a quick thing here before we get to final thoughts, great performers, but just like Alec Baldwin, and I'm not saying all of them in the show are like it, but I know some of them are, but just like Alec Baldwin, heinous people.
And
idiot, too.
And you know, I feel like we gotta give our hats off to the unsung hero of the entire OJ trial, Norm Macdonald. Rest in peace, Bigums. You were the greatest hero the OJ trial had ever seen.
Oh, yes, this comedy was great. And, you know, basically, we sort of went into our final thoughts there, and the final thoughts is, just like Chernobyl, a really great biopic, just like Chernobyl as well, an upsetting biopic, just seeing how far things went, and, you know, a bit of a hard one to watch if you don't like racial stuff, because there is quite a bit of it in there, and, you know, just, it really captures how crazy things were. And, you know, it may bring you back down to memory lane like it did me. I'm pretty sure it did to Jherick.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of other things like that. Because, again, I got so upset with the show because I could not believe half the things they were showing. And I kept talking to my friend. I'm like, hey, you know, Simony, did this happen? Did this happen? Did that happen? And he's like, yeah. Probably the one thing that got me the most was the fact when Robert Shapiro went over to the table to put on the evidence glove that they just left there. And I told him, that's got to be movie. They did not leave that there like that. Did they? Did they literally leave those gloves there? And Simony says, yes, Norman, it was on TV. The cameras were still rolling even though they were in recess. So they caught that on there. And I'm like, how stupid could you be leaving the evidence there for someone to tamper with, which Robert Shapiro did, and in a sense, that is evidence tampering because they came up with a plan to get past it.
And, you know, I just gotta ask real quick. How's your girlfriend, Ayeshe Mamaru, doing? You, plucking her feathers for her?
No, but anyway, you know, that's what I think about the show. You have anything else to add, Jherick?
You know, I'm just gonna say this, hey, Cochran. 2-finger salute.
Oh, no. It's fair because people want to know what I said. I wanted to punch Cochran. I wanted to just, you know, do terrible things. And I know, granted, I shouldn't be saying this, folks, but for him, it was all about race. Because, this is probably a good note to end on. Yes, Cochran did get the attention of President Bill Clinton and the world. And, you know, he had a little tear at the end of the biopic. I understand, but if there's one thing that Chris Darden had him on, no matter what you do, Johnny, you haven't changed a thing. Black men will still be persecuted, black men will still be attacked, we will still be hounded by police departments everywhere. You haven't changed anything. And personally, when you look at how the world sort of is, that really didn't change much, did it, Cochran?
And hey, for the rest of his life, he was just the OJ lawyer.
Yeah.
Famous, yes, but famous for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, well, there you go. But that is our review, and this is Owen Tuboku as Norman Spencer.
And, you know, Jherick, the jackass. And, hey, you put in a good word with your girlfriend's friend, Hatate? Come on, man. Just a little bit. Just recommend.
I'll try to get you a quick squeegee. But anyhow, we will see you then. Deuces, folks.
Deuces.